Hey, what's up everybody? We're back at the Shabin. Another weekend of mowing grass and cutting trees. But normally when we get here, I jump right on hooking up the battery for the electric in the Shabin, and I never take out the camera. So I thought real quick before I hooked it up, I would at least show you what our little setup is, and then ultimately try and have you understand how we wired the Shabin, and then maybe I'll just cut in the video and do a little drawing so you can sort of get an idea of what I'm talking about. But basically we're just using a regular deep cycle battery. I think we got this from Costco, and it's a I want to say it's probably around 100 amp hours, give or take 5 or 10, but probably close to 100 amp hours. But check it out, this is what we do. So in this little, whatever this is, dresser, we have just a 600 watt inverter. It's made by Ames. We used to use it in our RV all the time, and I really liked them. And then we just have a double-ended extension cord that I made, properly called a suicide cable, which is, not the best thing when you're talking electrical. But for this aspect, we're off grid, so it's all good. But basically, all we do is when we get here, I just pop the battery in this little cabinet. And hopefully you can kind of see what's going on in here. And then I just hook up the battery. You might see a little sparkage. Maybe not. And then I plug in the inverter, turn it on, and now we have electric. So basically the battery is hooked up to the inverter. Inverter changes it from 12 volt to 120 volt. And then the way that we wired the Shabin is one big loop. I'm certainly not the first person to ever done that. As a matter of fact, I originally got the idea from JC over at Boss of the Swamp, or Swamp Boss, who's awesome. He does things a little bit differently than I did, but for the most part it's generally the same, where the whole Shabin is in a loop, and then I just branched off to run a few lights, which we can show you at a later time. But just to get a general idea, the most important part of living off grid is the TV, right? But then everything's hooked up, and there's a little bit of TV to watch. And we'll put on Laugh just for some comedy. And that's it. So once the battery's hooked up, it basically gives us lights, which you can see we got lights in the Shabin. They're just some LED, 60 watts, so they take up no wattage at all. I think they run off of like 8 watts or something. And then we mounted some floodlights that are outside. But that's how we power up the Shabin. So maybe in a later video I can give you more detail. It's just one big loop. So start with an outlet all the way around. That way, essentially the inverter can plug into any outlet, and once it's hooked to the battery, it'll power things up. And then I just jumped off of this outlet up to the light switch and then over to the lights. And then on this side, I jumped up power from this receptacle over here up to this light switch, and this powers 4 floodlights that are outside, just in case we need to turn the lights on at nighttime if we've got the dog or something like that and just want to see where he's going. But other than that, it works out perfect. And I will say, not to get into too depth of a conversation in regards to the amp hour situation, but you can Google amp hours and understand solar and stuff like that. But think of it as, the battery's about 100 amp hours. So if you just take volts divided by watts, gives you amps. So a 60 watt light bulb, let's say, is half an amp, and then you base that on 50 amp hours. So I guess I could run a 60 watt light bulb for 100 continuous hours and take the battery down to 50% of where it's at. I think I did that right, something like that. I would never run the battery obviously all the way down, and I'm pretty sure that the inverter has a low power shutoff. But for us, I mean, we've been up here for 3-4 days at a time and have run the TV, for a couple hours at night, and have turned the lights on and the floodlights outside. We've powered a little fan during the summertime. We've charged our phones. We've charged the laptops. We have a little iPad that we bring with us to watch movies at nighttime so that I can shut all the power off, and we charge that back up in the morning. But ultimately, I've never run out, and we bring 2 batteries with us just in case. But the battery's never gotten low enough to ever shut off on me, so I'm sure we could go quite a while on just 1 battery if we conserved power. But I'll keep the video short, sweet. That's the electric for the Shabin. I'll draw up a little diagram maybe so that you can see what's going on and throw some old pictures in. But like I said, wired in a big loop, and it makes it super nice and easy. It's a really cheap, inexpensive way to sort of have off-grid power. For us, it's just a necessity really to charge phones, to have a little bit of TV at nighttime, especially in the wintertime if there's not much really going on, or even the summertime with the fan. There's obviously no air conditioning, and I think when we got here today, the peak on the thermometer inside was like 120 plus degrees. So it certainly gets a little bit hot in here, so it's nice to have the fan circulating a little bit of air. But yeah, that's the Shabin electric, and yeah, stick around. We're going to be here for the next day or two, try and get a little bit more land cleared outside, so either that'll be in this video or the next video. Thanks.
So, it's Mrs. ShabinLife. I know I don't normally talk. Just about the end of another 8-hour day. You can see we chipped, cut, still not done. Dave cut down about 50 trees maybe. Cleared a lot of what he was hoping to get done today. You can see that's an example of what we've been doing all day. We are almost done. A few more to chip up. A couple new burn piles for next time around. But as you can see, and you can look at the video from earlier today to see what it looked like before we got started this trip. And I'm sure Dave will give you a tour tomorrow morning before we head back out. All right. Hey everybody, good morning. It's our last day of this trip. Dave is pretty whooped. He just finished loading up the truck, so he asked me to just give a real quick summary of what we got done over the last couple days. So I'm just gonna switch views and Alright, so you can see how much Dave was able to clear. Took down a bunch of trees. So if you compare to the earlier video and videos from several months ago, this was all filled with saplings and thorny briar bushes and ragweed and all that kind of stuff. We made a lot of progress these last few days. I think in the last video I said we were finishing up an 8-hour day. It ended up being 10 hours, but you know, it's all good stuff. Clearing an area back over here, just a little more to go where we can start planning where the house will be. But if you go back to earlier videos, you'll be able to see that pretty much all of this was thick, thick, thick is, you know, what it looks like all over here is how thick things were everywhere. So a little progress, a little short video. I know I'm not the best at this. That's why I leave it to Dave. But like I said, he is pretty whooped and I think ready to call it a trip. As always, thanks for watching. Leave any questions, comments in the space below, and we'll see you next time.